I just noticed a video made a couple of days ago by that Bally Bowman guy, and so I just thought I'd respond to it because it's sort of related to this whole subject that comes up now and then of democracy and such. And people keep repeating this rhetoric, you know, over the whole virtual reality thing and what I said, and the, you know, population control stuff, and it's just the argument is bullshit. I've repeatedly made videos on it, and they just keep mischaracterizing what I've said, and I've said it pretty explicitly. So I'll go over it again. This just pisses me off that I have to.
You're confusing democracy with majoritarianism.
No, I'm not. Okay, look, there's no such thing as majoritarianism. There was no state ever created on Earth that was a majoritarianist. Alright, you can't have a democracy without a constitution defining how the democracy will take place. You know, and it's going to include certain inalienable rights are always going to be articulated. Just point me to a democracy, a majoritarianism state. It's just never existed. They always protect rights, and it's always those definition of what are real rights that we could argue about. But don't tell me it's not a democracy. It's a fucking democracy.
The reason for that is to protect the minority from the tyranny of the majority.
Yeah, well, there's no point in talking about it. I said a 75% majority. I mean, almost every constitution on Earth could be amended by such a majority. So if such a majority has such a will, there's no constitution that can stand in their fucking way. You know, there's been no constitution written that cannot be amended or reconfigured by the population. It just doesn't work that way. It's never written in stone because it has to evolve to the circumstances people fucking live in. You know, so it's just impractical first off, and it's stupid to give me this fucking argument. It's a damn motherfucking democracy. If you don't like what 75% of people think, well, you're out of fucking luck. That's the world we live in, and that's the best system we have, and it beats the hell out of 25% telling 75% how they're going to live.
The tyranny of the majority might be, say, someone argues that it would be a good idea for the future of mankind that a certain proportion of the populace be sterilized.
Yeah, okay, well, so now you've brought it up again, fine. So let's go over it again, alright? Yeah, I've argued that I think the safest place for humanity is eventually, in the future, virtual reality, because human beings can be the assholes that is their nature without there being any capacity to cause any real destruction. They can all be rapists and pillagers and abusers and slave owners and all the other crap they want to be. They can exploit things and people all they want in virtual reality without there being any real victims, any real cost. And I've made the argument that there's absolutely no way, no reason to create virtual reality, to make the expenditure and the investment in creating a safe environment for human consciousness if you're going to leave the same blight on the outside world. If you're still going to have 6.5 billion people living in squalor and bullshit and an insane competitive system, basically consuming each other and the earth itself, then you've accomplished nothing. Because the whole point is, from my perspective, is to eliminate the negatives. It isn't to provide some arena of gluttony for the elitists to hang out in, or some other kind of equation. I mean, that's just bullshit. You know, from my perspective, it is the greater evil to do nothing. It was like Typhoid Mary, when you know, her reputation, she basically, you know, she was this person immune to typhoid, but she carried the disease, and she kept taking jobs as a chef. So she killed numerous families because she wouldn't stop being a chef. She wouldn't acknowledge that she had this capacity to kill the family she was working for. And so she just kept killing people. And so the government finally had to step in, and they had to step in, and they had to step in, and she just kept not obeying the rules. And it was just ludicrous. I mean, you can't just let things happen. And so from your perspective, doing nothing makes sense. From my perspective, that's the obscenity. What if the same conclusion was reached about animals being just as worthy, or being worthy of protection from abuse by human beings. If 75% of the people believe that, they have a right to tell the 25%, fuck you, you can't abuse animals anymore. It's like every other equation. I mean,
talking about a billion people could be sterilized. Could be forced to suffer. That's not democracy, right?
Well, yes it is when there's 6 billion who say it's got to be. If there's no other choice. I mean, obviously I don't care about sterilizing them. I just care about them obeying the mandate that they cannot overproduce, that they cannot create a new generation to be trapped on the outside. That's simple. And so you think that's a horror and that's suffering. Well, obviously from my standards, I don't see that as suffering. I don't feel tyrannized because I haven't reproduced. So fuck you. I mean, there's some point where it just becomes a fuck you argument because your values are so extremely different than mine that we can't see it the same way. But I'm not going to call you a fascist because if I lose an argument and 75% of the people say it's going to be this way, I can't call them fascists.
Just because the majority agrees on it doesn't make it right.
Yeah, but it makes it more right than if a minority agrees on it and imposes it on the majority. Again, if the majority finds out that there's a cure for cancer and it has some liability tied to it, some 10% risk factor or something, and the majority says, okay, well, for the whole future that's going to be made immune to cancer, we will sacrifice 10% of our population. We will make the risk. We will take the risk. Okay? That's infinitely more rational than that 10% or that 15% or that 20% who might say, oh no, we can't do that. No, we're not going to invest in the future. We're going to invest in the right now. I don't want to take the risk. So fuck you. I mean, this equation's there's always these equations that come down to your personal values. And the bottom line point I'm making is that either you invest in democracy or you don't. And majority opinions have more credibility than minority opinions. That's just a fact, by their very nature. I'm not saying there aren't plenty of minority opinions that are more credible and more rational than majority opinions. I'm just saying that as a basic concept, if you're going to have a standard by how people get ruled, it's better to be ruled by a majority than a minority. There's a much higher risk in the minority having power.
To get rid of all the atheists, or to sterilize all the atheists, would that make it right? If they voted for it, and you didn't make your case convincingly enough, you just have to accept it. Would you accept it? I should bloody hope not.
Yeah, well, I don't know why you would think I would bloody hope not. Why the hell would I give a fuck? I don't think having babies is a right. I think it's a fucking responsibility. The last thing on earth I would do is inject a life into something else when I can't provide for its motherfucking future. I mean, it's the fucking height of your responsibility.
You know it is. That's why you haven't, in this video, you don't actually spell out what you're talking about. You don't actually...
Yeah, fuck you. I spelled it out in like 10 videos, alright? It's been spelled out and spelled out and spelled out. So fuck you on that one.
And that's deliberate. That is deliberately trying to move away from what the actual subject is.
Now, look, you just used metaphor yourself, you dumb fuck. An analogy. That's what people do in arguments. They create another situation so people can gain some perspective and understand what the fuck you're talking about. Alright, and they're not going to be perfect. I've explained exactly why I say you can't have there's no point in having virtual reality if you let the fucktards create the same mess on the outside world. Then you have fixed nothing. It's like saying there's a vital machine running and it runs horribly and it's wasting gasoline, it's killing people, the smoke is pouring out of it. It's a horrible obscenity to anything and to everything. And so I fixed the problem of that evil machine by building a second machine right next to it that runs efficiently and nicely and does everything beautifully. It doesn't fix the goddamn broken machine. It doesn't fix the pollution. It doesn't fix the noise. It doesn't fix the wasted resources. So it's absolutely motherfucking useless.
It still stinks.
No, it stinks is people who think They can solve problems by doing nothing. Alright? I mean, the world is overpopulated. It's a fact. We're running out of fuel resources, okay, and population is continuing to increase. That is just an equation for having people living in squalor. Okay? That's a horror. That's a real fucking horror. That's a turd of an idea. So fuck you. Why don't you come up with an answer to that fucking problem with something. What? God's gonna save us? Is that your fucking answer?
People will always oppose tyranny.
Yeah, right. Just like the murderers oppose their jail sentence. What the fuck does that? Doesn't mean anything. Because again, you haven't defined the tyranny. Alright? You say it is tyranny not to allow what? Is it tyranny not to allow a white man to own a black man? Is that tyranny? By your definition? Is it tyranny to stop Typhoid Mary from being a cook? Is that tyranny?